Good evening. It is 6:16 p.m. And tonight is Thursday, May 14th, 2020. And this is the Board of Education meeting. I just want to start out by apologizing to my husband for scheduling a meeting on his birthday. We'll celebrate tomorrow. Mr. Guarino, if you could please call the roll. Oh,
Sure.
I forgot to say, hold on. I forgot to say that we're having this meeting remotely via Zoom pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, Section 8, and Emergency Order 12, Section 3, as we are still under stay-at-home orders.
Hey, Mr. Guarino is here. Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Ms. Ziem,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Giulio,
Here.
Ms. Brown,
Here.
Ms. Raymond,
Here?
Ms. Oden,
Here.
Ms. Timmons.
Here.
We have a quorum also with us tonight. We have Dr. Mosley,
Here.
Dr. McKinney, Ms. O'Gara.
Here.
We have Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Here.
We have, trying to look down the, I don't want to leave anybody out. We have Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
And also we have our two student representatives, Mr. Norris.
Here.
Mr. Gao.
Here.
And see if I left anyone out. We have Ms. Gingras.
I'm here.
Mr. Wante, did I correct, get your name right?
Yep, you did. I'm here.
Okay. And I believe that's everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Guarino. I have mastered the art of Zoom now, and I can see everybody. So we can go back to hand raising if you have questions, with the exception of Ms. Ziem and Ms. Oden, who I cannot see because you don't have cameras turned on. So just make a noise if you'd like to speak.
We also have Ms. Kinsella. I missed Tara, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. So the first thing on our agenda this evening is a presentation by Mr. Rodriguez, our Director of IT, Ms. Smith and Mr. Wante regarding our data governance plan in HB 1612. I read the 40-something pages of your document, and it looks like you guys put a ton of work into this. And I really appreciate you doing that and also bringing it here to explain it in layman's terms to the rest of us. So with that said, Mr. Rodriguez, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you for having us. It is like you highlighted, the group has put a lot of work into, getting the district up to speed with, data governance, student privacy, and student security. And this also touches on staff security and privacy as well. So I'm going to get going with this. I'll go back. All right. So these are the committee members: myself, Christine Smith, Steve Wante, and other members of the tech department and members across the district as well: Donna Latina, Ian Harvey, Gladys Marcano, Tanya Eggman, Dan Alexander, Elaine Talbot, Ann Altman, and Linda Walsh, we've all worked together to provide that document and really reassessing how we as a district view security and privacy for everybody. Okay. So the background of RSA 18966 to 18968A, or otherwise known as HB 1612, we so lovingly call it just 1612. It was passed in June 2018, and in the New Hampshire DOE uses FERPA, which this bill is really in the spirit of these three things. So this all falls under the umbrella of that. So FERPA, as we know, it focuses on protection of the privacy of students and education records. SIPA goes more towards governing of filtering and internet access, acceptable use in digital citizenship in education. So what we use right now for our filter is Lightspeed Relay. So even students right now who are in remote learning, they have to, every device that we supply them, we have to supply a filtering agent so they can't access pornography, gambling sites, violent sites, or anything like that. So we as a district have to filter those things, and that's what CIPRA follows. And COPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, governs the collection, use, and disclosure of personal information collected from children ages 13 and under. So these three huge governing regulations are what drives HB 1612. So as part of the bill, or as part of the law, all districts must be fully compliant within 4 years of passage. Data privacy is for students and staff. We as a district and other districts across the state are responsible for maintaining and enforcing data security standards. I'm going to be referring to Nashua School District from this point on as the district. So, and the data governance plan is a living document. So as I ran through in the previous slides, the top three, SIPA, COPA, and FERPA, are more geared towards education. HIPAA is for healthcare, but we do, we have school nurses and not, so they have to follow their HIPAA compliance. PCI DSS mostly deals with payment and credit cards. And then I'm not terribly familiar with PPRA and IDEA, but those are part of the regulatory compliance that HB 1612 follows. So as part of the data governance plan, we have to include all these mandates within the data governance plan. So these standards is what we have to follow when we present this plan to our Board of Education. And so the purpose of this is for the district to provide faculty and staff and students with technology to support productivity, research, and education objectives. So we as a district, we store data. It's just part of what we do because we deal with students and we deal with staff. And we are all data custodians. It doesn't matter who we are part of being custodians in the district because we have access to so much information about students, staff, and all that is passed through email. We have important information that we do pass on through email. So we have to be cautious of how we even access the data and who has access to that data. So we want to, when we have this data, we have to make sure that we don't accidentally disseminate or intentionally disseminate any data or modify data without any consent. So we take specific measures, and we will be adding specific measures in the future on how we keep, store, transmit, and destroy data moving forward as part of the spirit of the data governance plan. So a term that's used a lot in not only IT security and IT privacy is PII, otherwise known as personal identifiable information. And this is what's really, really valuable to bad actors. This is what we use for our credit cards. This is what we use. We have birth certificates, social security numbers, driver's license number, even tax ID, email address in some cases, and street address, and even biometric measures where your retina and your fingerprints can also be considered PII. These are what people are after. And if you've ever had a phishing email come your way and they ask for your credentials, this is what they ultimately want to get. Money is good, but information on identity is far more valuable these days. That's almost the new currency of in IT and for people. So the scope of this is all of our policies and standards and processes apply to all students and staff within the district. So we also have to take certain measures when using third-party vendors, and they have to sign what is called a data privacy agreement. This policy applies to all written, verbal, and technical communications, hard copies, data stored on, let's say, servers or computers, and it also applies to removing media like a flash drive or a CD or even cloud-based storage. So we have to make sure that how you keep your information that is part of the district safe. We want to, as part of training, we can do that and help you make sure that whatever you have and what you transmit and what you use is safe. So I'm gonna pass this slide on to Chris. So she's gonna speak about the change of culture that needs to happen throughout the district.
Thanks, Greg. We have been, as a committee, living and breathing HB 1612 for, gosh, quite some time, but this is going to be new for our teachers, students, families. So it will be a shift, and professional development will certainly be a key to highlight, the need to put identity, privacy, security in the forefront for our children's safety. We already foster digital citizenship through units of study with our tech integrators and our computer classes across the district. There'll be just a shift to really putting identity and privacy in the forefront and understanding the restrictive access that will happen with some of these applications moving forward.
Thank you, Chris. So as part of the data governance plan is the appendices. So these are how we structure our processes and through definitions. Part of it is, and one of the bigger part is the disaster recovery plan and the data breach response plan. So those are the two ones that we really focused on the technical side of things, because as I said before with the PII, data is very valuable, and if we don't have our data, we're almost blind in the district. So this is why it is important for us to develop a disaster recovery plan, which we have highlighted in the data governance plan and a data breach response plan. So if we are as a district compromised in any way, either intentionally through a bad actor or unintentionally, this is the process that we have to follow, and we're going to be fine tuning this as we go along to follow industry standards to keep us and our data safe. So we have some goals moving forward. We would like to vet applications, and part of that, part of what we use for the applications in the district, it's everything. So I know Chris has really spearheaded this part of the HB 1612 committee. I'm going to have her speak more about how we are vetting applications from this point forward.
So we began some work over the winter, wrapping our arms around all of the applications that are being used in the district currently. We knew that we would have two phases: one, to vet everything already being used, and then develop a process for all new applications that teachers would want to consider using. So K through 12, working with at least one representative school from each elementary, middle, and high school to started compiling lists of applications, online resources, websites, you name it, to begin the vetting process. That in and of itself was starting the shift in culture for our teachers in thinking in terms of what they're using and how to look at them. So that definitely was a great beginning.
Mm-hmm. So when we also look at the applications, we also have to re-examine how we do all of our things now. So this goes back to the change of culture. So we have to look at our digital and physical data destruction. What does that look like right now? What is that life cycle? So we kind of have to do an internal audit of not just IT, but all departments in all schools and see how that looks. We also have to, and Steve and I have been working to improve our network and systems to reflect NIST, which is like the highest authority on internet security, and not just internet security, but on-premises security and how we can keep data safe. So after this committee, this committee is more or less dissolving, and it's being rebranded as a Digital Security Awareness Committee. And it's not going to meet monthly like we did with the HB 1612. This is going to be more of a meet twice a year type of thing, either in the spring and the fall, and then we're going to review the culture, report back and see what this looks like, and then disseminate best practices through training and articles throughout the district, and an annual review of the data governance plan. So going back to what Chris was talking about with reviewing applications, so we have a piece of software that we recently purchased called Education Framework. As we can, what this software does, it evaluates applications within seconds, as opposed to hours, which the legal speak that's in the privacy agreements or the privacy policies is too much above our heads. So as you can see, these are two applications that we vetted recently. One is they're both messaging applications. One is Talking Points, the other one is Remind. And as we can see in Remind, this is scored a 4.5 out of 5, which is very good. So the two big ones that we find that is for us very important is the data used for school purposes only. We want to make sure that if we're using an application, it is only used for school purposes, because, like I said, we are custodians of data. We don't want data to leave the district, especially if it's unauthorized. So this is part of us doing our due diligence for the students and the staff. We have to vet applications. It's going to be a culture change, and there's going to be some no's out there that we can't use the applications that are already being used. Talking Points is one of those applications that data is not used for school purposes only. That means that they can sell information or sell whatever to a third party. And the data retention for school purposes only. Talking Points did have that as a check on theirs, but to us, a 3 is not good enough, because it doesn't show that we are doing our part to protect students. So this is what the great part of this software is. It'll allow us to not only save time, but it'll also give us take out the objectivity of the software. So our goals for 2020 and beyond. So we want to recompose and rebrand our responsible user guide. So we want to rewrite that to bring it up to the time. About 10 years old, and we feel that the spirit of the rug was good for back then, but right now it just doesn't apply. We would like to publish a IT security and privacy page on the website that would highlight the applications that we use, best practices for internet security, email security, and even current threats that are going on right now. We would like to add this to the website. And Ian Harvey, who's been working with Stacy Hines, I have a feeling he would do a really good job of picking it up and making it look great and interactive. Further refine the process for requesting applications, digital tools, and extensions. So we do have a process right now where we've gathered and inventoried the applications. Now it's the vetting part. Now it's the running it through the software, and that process would have taken us months. It could take us just weeks now. So that's good. And the more information that staff and faculty know about which applications to use, the better, because it gives a clear black and white of what can be used, what not can be used. So we want to revise and annually present the data governance plan to the National Board of Education. So if we make any changes, we would like to let you know that if any changes do happen, to keep everyone on the Board of Education aware. Provide on and off boarding training for all employees. So if we have we can provide a packet to them, right, and say, if you're coming on, this is what the Nashua School District wants you to know about our privacy and security and how to keep that safe. And also, if they're leaving, don't share any information. Don't be a bad actor. So this is because, like I said, we do our best to keep children safe. We're trying to do our best, and we do our best to keep ourselves safe. We has to be go both ways. And we also would like to conduct a security audit on our network biannually. I believe that wraps up the presentation. I guess now we'll leave it open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez and Ms. Smith. I really appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Smith, or Mr. Avante while they're here? Yeah, Ms. Giglio.
So if a teacher or let's say a department finds a new app that they think will be amazing for their students, is it very clear to them what the steps are to go through to have you vet that app before it's made available to everyone?
Krista, do you want to answer that?
Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It will absolutely be clear for the teachers. There will be a very well laid out process for them. We will be utilizing the website for them to first check to see if the application has already been vetted. Having education framework available to us, we will be able to vet applications that might not even be requested yet, so that we can build a catalog of applications so that teachers are able to, hopefully in the shift of culture, view that catalog first as apps that they would consider.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Seam.
I noticed the word retina scan. Can you tell me what a retina scan is and why we have it?
We don't have it we don't have a retina scan in the district. It's just used as a biometric, which means something that you are. So if we have a fingerprint, that is as a marker that is unique to you. So we don't have retina scans in the district. That's more of a military grade type of thing, and it's very expensive to identify somebody. So photos is what we use right now to identify, and like an identifying number like our LACID or another means of identification.
So are photos valuable for them to get? Someone had said to me that they didn't even want their picture anywhere, and I didn't realize that could be a threat. Is it a threat or not?
We don't really share our photos without consent. So, and that's parental consent. So anything that we can do to protect our students, including photos, we will take that measure. And we do, I believe we have agreements with Hockmeyer, who is our photo vendor right now. So
We also have a form, I believe, regarding using students' photos, in that we won't post photos without parental permission.
Well, I was specifically speaking of anybody's photo, like the Board of Education. We have our photos on television, or not on television, but on the website. So can they take our photos and do something with those photos?
I don't think that's something we have to be worried about. If it's not much they can do in terms of identifying like a fingerprint, unless you're especially good at that stuff. But I don't think taking pictures of us in the website, for people over 18 is something we have to really worry about.
And can I have my final question? Is there anything coming up in all of this culture change that we're talking about that will be a financial liability?
The greatest part about this bill is that it's unfunded. Isn't that amazing? So so we have to take our measures. We got to be strategic with how we, be safe. So security and privacy does come at a cost. But Steve and I and the rest of the department are always finding ways to be careful, to share information. Training, sharing information is always is for the most part free, and we do take that responsibility on, and we want to be able to provide not only the students but the staff with the best practices on email, especially email, because things come in that can look real, but they're really not. And one of the recent things that we've done is change our email from an on-premises email to Office 365, and this offers a very robust phishing and spam filtering, and we're hoping that this is going to greatly reduce that threat vector for the district.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Raymond, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dean. Go ahead, Ms. Oden.
Okay, thank you. I'm one who's concerned about having photos on the internet. I don't know if you're familiar with Clearview. Have you read anything about Clearview?
I have not read anything about.
Okay, they are scraping pictures off the internet and entering them into a database for facial recognition. And it's kind of scary when you think if somebody can take your picture, they can put you in an ad supporting something you don't support. It can be in pornography. And I think for us, we need to be careful because it's becoming more prevalent and it can be used in devious ways. So I think if you read about Clearview, it's something you would be concerned about. Also, last year, Josh and some of his classmates came to the board and they were talking about student passwords. And our students have their passwords for years sometimes. I guess their birth date is in it. And as a former first grade teacher, I know the importance of having knowing the child's password, because in first grade, they just don't remember it. But when kids get to middle school and high school, they certainly should understand the importance of password security. And I did notice in your document where I think it said you had to have 8 letters, you had to have a number and a symbol in your password, and it had to be changed every 6 months. Is that correct? Is that
that
going
applies
to be
to staff.
Shouldn't we have something like that for students in teaching them security, because that's a lifelong skill?
That's something that we can definitely talk about with the committee and even within the IT department on how we at least look at student password. We know that we don't we don't publicize our password convention with the rest of the world. So we're just in hopes of keeping that information in-house and within the district. But it is something that we can reevaluate.
I understand that, but I've been taught that a password can be very easy to make that cannot be hacked. Have a number, a symbol, and something like the red mustard jumps lakes or something like that. Just a silly sentence that cannot be hacked easily. So I would like to see us part of education to make sure our students understand the importance of passwords and not sharing them and having things that are hard to decipher.
You are
my
correct.
second thing,
sorry, go ahead.
No, my second thing is I've read about Zoom, and I'm concerned about the lack of security at Zoom. Zoom was forwarding information to Facebook, whether you were a Facebook member or not. And for me, that bothers me because I don't do Facebook. And also they had some type of a device that would, once you installed Zoom on your computer, there was something they were leaving that even when you left Zoom was still sending information to a company. Apple realized this was going on, and they sent an update out to take it off the computers that people had that were using the Apple computers. But I don't know if Microsoft has had anything. And I am concerned because we have so many people using Zoom, and Zoom is noted in the industry for having a lack of security. I know the aldermen use WebEx. I believe that's what the defense contractor here in Nashua uses. And I'm wondering if you're looking at that, looking for something that is safer and has more security than Zoom for our schools, because should we have to go into remote learning again, I want to make sure it's the safest thing we can get for our students and our staff.
Absolutely. Just to address your first part with the passcodes. Yeah, you're right. Passphrases are the best way to go. So your yellow mustard ketchup river would be a good passphrase to use. I don't even know if that's yours, but you're right. That is a great passphrase to use. And that is, like, again, that is something we would like to we can look at for students, students in their passwords. I know for us, it's if we know the students' passwords, it's easier for us to troubleshoot an issue for them, because we can access their account and make changes, or at least on a technical point of view. But going to Zoom, I was unaware of what they're selling for, what they're giving out for information. That's something we can look at. We use one of two mediums right now for video conferencing, and that's Google Hangout or Zoom. So both of those options are available. And we are going to, in IT, we're constantly reevaluating what we're using in terms of technology. It's something that we care about, because it's easier to keep I'm using an analogy of easier to keep a milk in the glass than picking up the spill later. So that's what we want to do. If something's wrong, and it doesn't meet standards, and we shouldn't use it. So that's something we would like to address.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think you're on mute, Miss Ray, but
Yes, I think I did it backwards. Sorry. I guess I'm not a Zoom expert after all. So Mr. Gao and then Ms. Brown.
Okay, thanks. So I just wanted to also speak regarding what Miss Dottie said about, Miss Odin said about the passwords. So right now they're actually, I'm sure as you know, they're generated by like a standard rule, meaning like every student their password generated by the birthday, which means it's really easy to get your friends.
Let's not actually say what the password system is out loud, even though many people watching it are parents and students. Just to be on the safe side.
Yeah,
it's not announced to the world.
If we wanted to talk privately, I think that'd be best regarding passwords.
If you can phrase your question without saying what it is, that would be the best choice.
Okay, let me think. So right now they're kind of like based on like some sort of standard. So if we could kind of make it so that it's randomly generated for every student without going by a central statement, maybe that would be better.
Yep, that's something we can look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gao. I'm sorry to interrupt you halfway. I want to be careful what we say publicly about things that should be kept private for students and parents as well, because parents use the student logins to access like grading on X2, for example. So go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's actually, I completely agree with what Mr. Gao said, and also, erring on the side of paranoia when it comes to internet safety is probably best for all of our individual selves and for the children. So I'm really glad that you have this application that's vetting all of, or I'm sorry, is it privacy quality score? Is that what it is called? Right. I'm sorry. Well, it doesn't really matter. That's vetting all the apps. I think that's fantastic. And I love the idea that you're putting together a database, a catalog of recommended apps that teachers can know are safe. I'm wondering if when you start compiling that, if you could also add in something where Nashua teachers could go in and rank or give some kind of a, basically rank the quality or a comment section on how I'm using this in my classroom, or this sounded really good in practice, but it actually didn't apply well at all. So that would be an awesome feature to add in. And then the other
Okay.
half that, oh, go ahead. So,
Yeah, I was just actually, well, it was fresh in my mind. That is something that we have deliberated on a lot in those meetings. Because we look at an application on the IT side as purely safe or not safe, and we don't know how that would look like in the classroom, and that's something that we have to like bridge the gap with curriculum and how that's used, because we're looking at maybe going through the tech integrators and the technology coaches to see if the teachers presented to them first and they ask, how is this used in your classroom? Well, it's not really used for learning. It's more like a game for fun. Then why are we vetting this application anyway? So we want to make sure that through technology and curriculum that the application, one, makes sense to use in the classroom, and two, that it's safe to use in the classroom.
my other question is kind of still related to that. Once something is vetted,
Mhm.
will that like be reevaluated annually or something like that? Because I'm guessing the privacy agreements change periodically.
Yep. So part of that software is that it notifies us if there are any changes for the good or bad to that application. So it's a smart software, and it updates the five or six administrators that we have within the site right now, and that's Steve, myself, Chris, and then 3 other people on the technology side. So that's what's really cool about it. So it notifies us, and then we notify staff if there are any changes for the good or bad.
Excellent. And then my final question was in relationship to data destruction. I saw that word on there and it kind of just popped out at me. Do we have a process of what we do with private information when a student or an employee leaves the district? Is that a process is that what that qualifies as? Is that what data destruction is?
Yeah, that goes for physical and digital. Steve, maybe you can unmute yourself for this question. I just want to know how long that we keep or retain records in our backup system for that.
Yeah, so typically we keep, so if a staff member was to leave the district, we typically keep it for about 3 months before we consider that staff member, no longer coming back, or, the chances of them coming back is pretty low. So that's kind of when we consider a staff member completely removed from our system, and then we go ahead and do our final deletion of any of their records, essentially.
And we can speak on the IT side of that, but I don't know if any personnel or anything like that at the building level or in any other department. So I can definitely speak to the IT side of that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Norris?
So I was just thinking when we were talking about this, would it be possible to give students the option to choose their password and then still give the teachers a list of these passwords? Because I know in some situations it can be helpful for the teachers to have a list of their students' passwords, but it could also be beneficial in some cases to have students have their independently chosen passwords too.
What we do have to look at when we're talking about passwords is that any passwords that are either written down or kept in any type of media like a flash drive or a file, that makes that person and whoever has those passwords vulnerable. So it's best practice to try to keep your passwords in your head or in a password manager that is protected by a password. So I know you're probably all like, I write down my passwords, but it's not best practice, especially if it's near your computer. They're just as important as a PIN number for an ATM card. So we encourage, it's a process that after talking about it today, it's something we should, have a conversation about and take a look at.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. I don't see any other hands, so thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez. I did have one quick question before I let you guys go off to your evenings, and that was, how has remote learning affected all of this? And do you think that should we in the future have to do this again, how will that affect your goals?
It that's like a loaded question. We have, I feel that Steve and I both have internet security certification. So when we were talking about going remote learning, one of the things we did talk about was how are we going to make this possible while keeping students safe? So one of the things that we had to do for the Chromebooks when they went out, and the newer Chromebooks, was we had to enroll them, and we enroll all of our Chromebooks that we manage. So these Chromebooks are filtered, and they only our email accounts for our Google can sign on. So anybody with a regular Gmail account can't sign into the account. So sign on to the Chromebooks. So that kind of brings that part down. However, one of the things that we do realize is the culture change of applications that are being used. Since teachers have never, for the most part, haven't taught online or remotely before, it could have turned into the wild west in terms of applications used. And so that includes unsafe applications and the like. So I think right now, since we're in the beginning stages for the district in terms of vetting applications, if we do have to do this again, we can have a list, a catalog of applications to use that are safe, that they can use, and for our students. One of the things that we did to improve the security, as I covered before, was the implementation of Office 365, and that to us was such an incredible upgrade to our email system that it to us, it made all the difference. Steve, I don't know if you can speak to any more of the security measures that we've taken. We've also implemented it's called remote desktop services for our staff who need to do day-to-day operations, because part of internet security in IT is operations and continuing business. So we wanted to make sure our district staff and our building staff were able to keep on their operations as business as usual. So, and that includes setting up a secure connection from their home computers to the computers to the district and our network. So that is a secure connection with encrypted data going back and forth. Steve, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
That was good.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm familiar with the VPN process through my work for the state, so that's very common. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evenings. I know that you are all very busy with remote learning. I know IT, everyone wants to talk to you all the time, and it must feel wonderful to be so popular.
Oh, it's like being a celebrity.
Yeah. So I do recognize that this is even more time that you're spending. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, and we are so happy to be able to present this. It's just one thing that we were able to take off our plate. That this is like yes, we can now cheer.
Good, excellent. Well, the way we've been leaving it with the Zoom meetings is you're welcome to stay if you so choose. You're also welcome to go forth and have your evening without us. No hard feelings either way.
All right, take care. I'm going to leave.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. So I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Ms. Giglio has her hand up, but I can't hear her.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second it. I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Johnson. Okay, any discussion? I don't see any hands. Mr. Guarino, can you call the roll?
Okay, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Ziem?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Giglio?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Sorry, I froze. Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Do we have any communications outside the consent agenda? I don't see any hands. So the next item is the superintendent's comments. Dr. Mosley. You're on mute, Dr. Mosley.
A couple of things. Right before the board, I don't know, right before the board meeting, excuse me, I emailed the board an article out of the Boston Globe, and we have a young lady from from the South. Her name is Janelle Piper, and she has been selected to attend that virtual graduation that is being facilitated virtually by Oprah Winfrey. To give you a little bit of a background, we want to say congratulations to her. She's a very active member in our community. She gives back. She's very passionate about her pursuing of nursing. She got accepted to Colby Sawyer College and will be attending in the fall. And she was one of a few selected people. Only 2 people out of the state of New Hampshire were able to be selected for this event. It's taking place tomorrow via Facebook, and we just want to wish her well and I guess take screenshots of this event, and certainly congratulations to her. There have been some wonderful, just wonderful activities taking place in our district in terms of what's been going on for our kids. Just to give you some highlights, if you haven't caught it already, we've had some. I'm just impressed with the teachers on how creative they've been. I saw Bicentennial had a virtual the end of the year all staff meeting. Dr. Chris had some events where they had some, I would say, they looked like there was some creative artwork on the table for some of our kids. And I also saw some art projects or some science projects coming out of our middle schools. So I just, I know that it isn't the best situation, but I'm certainly very, very pleased and excited as well that our kids are still, despite the circumstances, are able to get some type of connection with our faculty. So the next part of this conversation, I just wanted to update the board, but also give some information on what some of our parents have received today. Basically, what the district has done is provided what we call a 5-week kind of lookout on how the district is going to close out. And so partly, just to summarize a little bit, we're going to continue with our remote learning, and then towards after June 1st, we're going to start to what I say wind down our district. So I hope I communicate this well, but I'm sure I'm going to hear feedback from the union and from teachers. But one of the things, we want to keep things in perspective. We want our teachers to just take a breath. We want to be able to say it's okay. I highly recommend to our teachers that please don't start a new curriculum project June 1st. That's not going to be helpful to our kids, but it's also not going to be helpful for them as well. When I met with the union 2 days ago, they were very emphatic about making sure that they wanted to hear from me and saying, like, what is this? Where's the direction? How do we know it's okay to just take a break and to just put things in perspective? We've been at this remote learning for about 2 months. It's been we had some peaks and valleys for this as well. We totally get it, but also too, we want to keep it in perspective as well. And I would say to our teachers who are working diligently, thank you for everything you're doing. It's okay to make sure that you space out the assignments as we start to move towards the end of the year. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you feel like you need some directions or anything like that, we certainly have our principals and assistant principals on standby to help with that guidance and help, what I say, make sure the workflow and the management of the work to and from for the kids and for you is reasonable, particularly as we start to transition into the summer months. We sent out an email to our teachers. We also notify the public as well. All of the information is actually posted on our website for our teachers and administrators to access and to make reference. A little bit of good news. I would say that we through it's called the ESSER. The acronym is basically ESSSR, elementary secondary school emergency relief grant. Basically, that money is designed for COVID-19, particularly around our remote learning. The structure that comes from the federal government, it's money that the federal government is giving to schools, and as a result of COVID-19. The usage of that money is pretty flexible. Typically, what they recommend, the federal government and the state, is that the district use the money for remote learning and some of the challenges implementing remote learning. That's a great suggestion, and we're certainly looking to do that. They use a Title I formula for that. So for the public and for the board, I did email the board this information. We're currently slated to get $3.3 million for that money. So that's really exciting for us. I just want to say at the state level, what they're doing is that they have they formed a task force to talk about the reopening of schools. So this task force is called School Transition Reopening and Redesign Task Force. It is the acronym is STRRT, and essentially there are six subgroups to this. One, instruction, student wellness, student voices, operation, technology and association. We do have representation on that committee. Dr. McKinney is on that, and Gail Casey, our 21 21st century coordinators are part of that discussion. They're officially on that. You can go onto the website, and when these meetings are taking place, you can observe these meetings. You don't necessarily have to participate in them. In fact, they're pretty strict on like who's speaking for the group, but certainly these things are happening. I know we're going to talk a little bit about an internal remote learning task force here in Nashua, which I think is a great idea. But also, I just wanted to make the board aware that this was available to us as well. I'm just on I'm looking at the screen here. I had all this stuff written down. It's a little different. I just wanted to say there was one more thing I thought was very good, nice. At our middle schools, they actually have promotional ceremonies as well. And I thought it'd be, I think it's nice to see once we get this all up and running. I hope the goal that we can do is kind of make this available to the public, because I know Fairgrounds is also having a I say promotional ceremony for our kids as well. Not Fairgrounds, excuse me. All of our middle schools are having one. The best way to get the pictures, to the latest insight to the public around just the happenings of what's going on in our district, I think our Twitter website is a great resource for immediate pictures and pics of our kids and faculty doing some great things. To the faculty, to the parents, please hang in there. The weather, I know, is turning. Well, I know I shouldn't say turning. It's actually going to be not that nice for the next couple of days, but the weather will turn eventually. And we will have spring, or maybe we might not have spring. We just might have just straight to summer. So that's all I have to say right now. I certainly can take some questions if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mosley. I'm going to go by face-to-face as it appears on my Zoom screen, and just ask if each board member has comments. That way I give everybody and I don't miss everybody. So up in my top left-hand corner is Miss Giglio. Miss Giglio, did you have a response to the superintendent's comments?
No, I appreciate his comments, because I think the creation that we need to make of a committee that is going to be like looking retrospectively at how things went with reflections from the teachers and the administrators and even the students on how things went with the remote learning would be very valuable for us going forward. And I know there will be such a committee formed. And I think that that's a wonderful idea. So I do appreciate that going forward. And hopefully tonight we'll make a motion on that, but not right this minute.
All right, thank you, Ms. Giglio. Mr. Guarino, you're the next little box on my screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank all the teachers for what they're doing for the students. I know it's not easy under remote learning. Our faculty is doing some great things, but not to be a downer, but we did get from the high school a parade route. And when the parades came, they didn't keep to the parade route. So we, unfortunately, were not able to see the high school parade. We did hear lots of horns and everything. And I think there were actually two neighborhoods, my neighborhood, Sunset Heights neighborhood, and there was another neighborhood where they didn't keep the parade route. So I just, if the high schools are going to do more parades and they do advertise of parade routes, they should keep those, because some people, besides myself, there was other families too that were waiting and they went through a different part of the neighborhood. So I think it's important that they keep that. And but otherwise, I want to thank the teachers. As I said, I know the teachers are working hard and it's not easy for them. But that's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Goring. Now, how disappointing. I understand they're doing another parade route at some point, so hopefully you'll be able to catch them then.
Right.
Ms. Brown?
Thank you. I mostly just want to echo what Ms. Giglio said. I think it's going to be, I'm looking forward to having some feedback from the teachers and principals and a group together to prepare us for whatever the future holds. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Ms. Timmons?
Oh, thank you. Dr. Mosley, I want to know what the award ceremony going to look like this year. I attend all of them from the North and the South, and I hate to see that these kids are not being recognized for all their accomplishments. So what is that going to look like, and how is it going to, how are we going to, they're going to get their recognition?
Depending on all of it is going to be virtual. I can certainly reach out and try to get the dates to the board. So if they wanted to attend it, I'm not directly responsible for facilitating that, but I can certainly have the principals publish that information for not just for the board, but for the public. And that's just not for the high schools, but for all of the middle schools and elementary schools, whatever they're doing. So certainly I can get back to you on that, Ms. Timmons.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons, and thank you, Dr. Mosley. Ms. Johnson?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Bishop?
Hi. So I just want to clarify the schedule. It looks like, and what it sounds like you're saying is, as of May 29th, really don't start doing any new work with kids, work on stuff that needs to be made up, work on getting Chromebooks back, school stuff out, and just kind of gearing down towards the summer and getting ready for next year. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm saying that I'm sure Adam is watching me, so he'll shoot me a text soon or one way or another. So what I'm trying to say, and I said in the letter to the teachers, is that don't start a new curriculum on photosynthesis on May 29th. Mm-hmm. Don't start something new. Let's start to wrap this thing up. Let's get some course recovery. Let's follow what we would normally do for our end of the year activities. There are some kids who are going to be missing work. I say credit recovery. High school kids are starting to turn in their Chromebooks. They're starting to transition to, they need the time for course recovery. Our middle school kids are needing some time to turn in their work, but also prepare for their end of the year activities. I know that some of our kids are class speakers for these events. And so this is a time that they can practice their speeches. They can turn them into their teachers. If I would remiss to say, is that we also are building a repository of what we call enrichment programs. For instance, kids can take a virtual walk, a virtual tour of the Boston Museum of Science. There's some virtual resources out there for our kids. So this is a time that, and again, we also encourage, today was a good day, and I think Ms. Raymond started the meeting off this way. I hope today every single kid got outside. Sorry about that. sorry about that. I hope every single kid went outside and had spent 2 hours of physical education today. It was the best day to do that. So there's a level of what I say, putting things in perspective and not just taking it down, but if a teacher or someone is spending 3 hours on May 29th on an assignment or something, something's wrong. Stop. And we want to put things in perspective and give the kids and the parents time to submit the work, but also give our teachers some time to transition and get ready for the end of the school year. That schedule you're also looking at is allowing some of our teachers to go into the buildings and retrieve items that they had left when we transitioned out during the COVID-19.
Okay, excellent. I like it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Just so people know, if parents getting this letter or teachers or staff getting a letter have questions, who should they go to? Because I don't know the answer as well as someone else might.
Building principal, please. Building principal.
So go to their building principals.
Yes. I say principals if you have multiple kids in different buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
Please. They're ready.
Okay. Ms. Ziem, you're next on my boxes.
I just wanted to say that I very much appreciate Dr. Mosley's efforts. This cannot have been an easy time with all of the changes and the evolution of this whole COVID-19. So I think you're doing a great job, and I personally appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ziem. And Ms. Oden.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Mosley, for these guidelines that you sent out, and I believe Dr. McKinney sent out.
Yeah.
I have a question on the elementary level. It says from June 1st to the 12th, teachers will be completing end-of-year procedures and preparing report cards. Principals will review report cards and secretaries will prepare them for distribution. Please understand that teachers may not be available at times to complete these procedures. So let me ask you, this was also sent to parents. So what can parents expect their children to be doing during those times? Is that when you would be doing remote visits to the Science Museum in Boston, or is that a typical school day from the 1st to the 12th?
I'll defer to Dr. McKinney on that.
It is a typical school day. Parents should expect communication from the classroom teachers. If they have any questions, they can contact their classroom teachers. There is a little more time allotted there. Our special educators do need a considerable amount of more time, given what's going on during remote learning. But all in all, if there's a change in the schedule, the teachers will let the parents know. Maybe another grade level grade level teacher will cover, or they might have a UA block, but remote instruction continues on, and then we can return items to students and parents that last week in June, the 15th to the 19th. Thank you.
Okay. Also, on the middle school, when do grades close for the middle school?
That the official close of dates, the official date to close the middle school grades is June 15th. That's the official day we close grades.
So report cards are done on June 15th or later for the middle school?
Yes.
Okay. Also, it talked about recovery. Now, I know recovery came with competency-based education at the high school. Are the middle schools doing recovery?
They're pass-fail data. So they have a pass-fail. Any student that's failing will have an opportunity to pass.
With what they're calling recovery? Is that what it's called? Okay.
The recovery, yes. It's an opportunity for those kids to achieve a passing grade if they need it.
Okay. Well, you know, I have to say, I'm disappointed that teachers could not come together to share what went right and what needs to be improved upon, because I really do fear that we're going to be back into remote learning. I think there's a strong possibility that will happen in the future. But I hope this task force that is being formed will try to get as much information as they can. And I hope that our curriculum people can be involved in looking at each grade level and saying, hey, look, second grade, you're going into third grade. These things are critical to the success of kids in third grade. I hope there's some coordination with that people are involved, understanding what are critical areas to focus on, so that our kids can do as well as they can. I mean, it's going to be tough for teachers. If somebody has taught first grade, I can't imagine kindergarten kids coming in after 3 or 4 months of remote learning. We just can't replicate the classroom.
I agree with you, Dottie. I agree. I first of all, I hope you're wrong in a sense that we actually can go back. But if we can't, then we're going to have to start planning. So I think we're all feeling it. So I just hope that we can get back in some way or capacity, not just in the classroom, but I think the kids just need that sense of community. Whether I know Lisa Gingras is on the call, but on the line here too. But our extracurricular, our clubs, our plays. I mean, all of these things are what our kids really like about school.
Well, I guess a blessing in disguise. I think more kids are going to have a deeper appreciation of school, because most of them are saying, I miss my classmates, I miss my teacher. So.
And I think adults are too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Madam President, can I add to that?
Go ahead, Dr. McKinney.
I just want to share those conversations are taking place with the curriculum team. We've had steering committee meetings. There are a lot of grade level district-wide PLCs that are happening across the district. So there's a high level of collaboration and communication. Donna and I met today with our district level peer coaches. The challenge is we don't know what really to plan for yet. So we're kind of developing some plans. But we do have, as I said before in committee, kind of this working focus on pre-assessments, modifying our pacing, and determining some pre-assessments that we can give to kids to remediate these gaps. And I have every confidence that the educators will rise to the challenge, just like we did in March. We made remote learning happen. And once we come back together, they can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney, for that. And I'm sure our teachers are amazing. They've done a phenomenal job. I certainly appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear all of that is going on. Thank you.
Heather?
Yes, Ms. Dean.
Can I just ask a question? When they're talking earlier, Dr. Mosley mentioned that there's that $3.7 million, I think. Is there any possibility that towards the start of next year, that we could have some kind of spend some of that money to have some kind of a review where all the teachers are in? I don't know. I'm just suggesting that you keep that in mind. And if it works out that it's good, that would be wonderful. If it's not possible for some reason, that's another thing, but at least we could keep it in mind. And if it works out, it would be a good idea.
Thank you, Ms. Deem. Dan Donovan isn't on the call right now, but I do want to discuss the possibility of having a budget committee meeting this summer when we have those funds dispersed, so that the district and the board can come back together to talk about what the district needs look like, and how they've changed since the budget was passed. So,
thank you.
I think that's a good idea. Dr. Mosley, I just wanted to. Actually, I'm fine. So, thank you so much. So, moving along, the student member of the boards. I'll start with Mr. Norris because I understand he has a big test tomorrow.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start off. So AP tests are this week and next week. So I know a lot of people were concerned with how the tech aspect was going to go with those. But from what I heard, it actually has gone pretty well. People haven't had a lot of problems. College Board isn't known for their tech expertise, but they seem to have done a good job on this. I thought the rollout of the option grading system went pretty well. I thought it was relatively easy to use. It was widely publicized. So I think our administrators did a great job rolling that out. And I'd also like to talk about, I know I saw in the packet the switch to the NHIAA requirements for academic eligibility for extracurricular activities. So it seems kind of like a no-brainer to me to switch for the fall season, just because we have some students going with the pass-fail grading system, which would make our current requirements not work, because you can't have a C- average when you are with pass-fail. So I just think it would be kind of impossible. And also, I'd like to reiterate Dr. Mosley's and the board's comments on the job our teachers are doing. I think they're doing a great job. We've gotten past the adjustment period at this point, and it seems to be running smoothly now, and everybody's into a routine, and everything's only getting easier from here. So final thing, I myself am missing school a lot, and I know that once we get back, we will definitely value all of our events in school more than we are right now.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Mr. Gao?
Yeah, I think Mr. Norris covered a lot of the major things. The AP tests this week and next week, they're pretty big. And I did hear that there were like some difficulties through it, like some difficulties logging on and taking the test, but they're offering like a retake. So that's good. One interesting thing is that the Common App actually includes this option on the application to colleges this year for you to write about your COVID-19 experience. So I suppose colleges are interested in like what you've been doing during this time, like how you've been leveraging it, which is quite interesting. Graduation, I'm not really sure what the consensus is on there, but I know that the colleges have been doing online graduation so far. I was on Georgia Tech's a few weeks ago, and they actually interviewed students on the call, and they brought in some really cool speakers. So I guess like there are some advantages to the online graduation ceremony. But I'd also like to echo what Stephen said. Thank you to all the teachers who I know have been really putting in extra hours to make the ends meet, and really still providing us excellent education during these times. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gao and Mr. Norris. Okay, I see Mr. Norris waving. Best of luck to you on your test tomorrow morning. Okay, Committee on Finance. Budget. We have a budget. The presentation of our portion of the city budget will be next Wednesday. I forget the time. I think it's 7, but it is already posted on the city website under the Alderman's calendar, so anyone can go and look that up. I invite people to watch on television. And then the public hearing for the entire city budget, including all of the component parts of the city budget, will be next Thursday. And I have no idea how the aldermen are handling that, but that is also on their website. Committee on Finance and Operations. Ms. Oden, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes, I do. Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We met Thursday, May 14th, 6 o'clock by Zoom. And is Mr. Donovan here? Is he at the meeting here?
No, he's not tonight.
Okay. Then I'll bring each thing forward as a motion. And the first one is, and I believe maybe Ms. Gingras is here to speak to the adoption of a an Athletic Hall of Fame Special Revenue Fund. Are you here for that, Ms. Gingras?
I wasn't, but I can speak to it if you'd like me to.
Okay, if you could just give them a little background.
Sure. So as hopefully many of you know, about a year and a half, we started the process of resurrecting a 20-year dormant Hall of Fame for the athletic community. And during that time, all of our funds from donors and sponsorships and ticket sales have gone into a student activity fund, which is meant primarily for students and their activities. So in the past year and a half, that's where Mr. Donovan and the business office, we agreed we could put it temporarily. We were supposed to have our induction this past weekend, but because of our current pandemic, that had to be postponed. So we were actually on the Finance and Ops Committee meeting this week, scheduled back in February. So it's just coincidental that it came up at this time. So the more appropriate place for our funding is in the creation of a new special revenue fund. So it went to the Finance and Ops Committee first, and then if the full board approves it, then it moves on to the Board of Aldermen to approve that funding source for our Athletic Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Ms. Gingras. And what Mr. Donovan said, it is appropriate to have that as a special revenue fund. He said that really needs to be done. So I move to approve the adoption of an Athletic Hall of Fame special revenue fund as recommended by Mr. Donovan.
A second.
Oh. All right, I heard Ms. Giglio. First.
Yes.
Do we have any other discussion on that? See any hands? Seems very logical. So go ahead and call the roll, Mr. Guarino.
Okay, on the motion to adopt the Hall of Fame, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
Yes. Just to back
Ms.
up for a
Ziem?
second, Mr. Guarino.
Yep.
Sorry, just to back up. The motion is to create a special revenue fund
I'm sorry.
for the Athletic Hall of Fame. We already have the Athletic Hall of Fame resurrected.
Okay. Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson votes yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Ziem? Ms. Ziem? Ms. Ziem is still on mute. Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Giglio?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons? Who's Ms. Timmons?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Ziem, can you hear us? You're on mute. She still hasn't heard. But the motion carries 8-0.
Okay. The next motion is based on the fact that we have.
Dottie, Ms. Oden, can I interrupt you? So I think that we didn't put the finance and operations items on this agenda because you just met on Monday and there wasn't time to get the minutes, et cetera, published.
Oh, okay.
So are there other things that are time sensitive, like the Hall of Fame? Or can it wait till next week?
Most of this can wait till next week. Ms. Gingras, you know what's on here. Do you see anything that can't wait until next week?
The only other time sensitive item could possibly be the stipends for our coordinators, equipment managers, and coaches. But I do believe at the Finance and Ops meeting on Monday night, Mr. Donovan said if it came before the board in your next meeting, I think, Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, May 27th, he said
Correct.
If it was approved that night, that they could still get the payments out on time on June 4th.
Okay. Okay, so the rest of this can wait.
All right.
Okay.
If you're
Thank you.
comfortable waiting, that's
okay
with me as well.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oden, and thank you, Ms. Gingras, as well. Committee on Policy, Ms. Bishop?
So we didn't meet for policy, so I'm not quite sure where these policies are coming from on the agenda.
I can
So-
speak to that.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
These are policies that we reviewed just to update them to make sure that they were in compliance about being rechecked. And the new policies were adopted, but the old policies were not rescinded. So these 3 policies need to be rescinded because the new policies took their place.
Okay. I was going to say, they all look very familiar. I feel like we've already talked about them.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we'll quickly go through the 3, and then policy will be all set. Okay.
Yes, that sounds excellent.
Okay. Sorry, it didn't clear back to you, so thought I was stuck on me. So the first one is I recommend to rescind policy 66. Hold on. I make a motion to rescind policy 6610 in regards to district mail service, which has been approved at the 4:30 2020 BOE meeting, and is now no longer needed.
Second.
Thank
The
you.
motion was by Ms. Bishop, seconded by Ms. Gilio. Do we require discussion on any of these items?
No.
No.
Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of no's. So, Mr. Guarino, unless someone raises their hand and interrupts us, we'll just go from the second directly to the roll call.
Okay.
You can do the
Okay.
roll call.
On the motion, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons. Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. So the next one, I motion to rescind policy 11210 in regards to philosophy of public information.
Second.
All right. Seconded by
Thank
Ms. Timmons. All right. Mr. Guarino, could you do the roll?
Okay, on the motion to rescind 11210, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bishop, there's one more.
Yep. Sorry, I had children walking in. I motion to rescind policy 6412, managing asbestos in school facilities.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seconded by Ms. Gilio. Mr. Guarino?
On the motion to rescind 6412, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bishop, do you know off the top of your head when your next policy meeting is?
June
second.
3rd, 2nd.
Second.
June 2nd.
June
Thank you,
2nd.
Ms. Fitzpatrick. Okay. The Committee on Curriculum and Evaluation just met on Monday as well. Ms. Brown, do you have anything time sensitive that can't wait till next week?
Nope. We just had 2 fantastic presentations, and I'm really looking forward to moving on them next week.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Committee on Human Resources, Ms. Timmons.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move to suspend the rules because the HR met earlier this evening.
Second.
Have roll call.
I'm not seeing any hands for discussion. So Mr. Guarino, on the motion to suspend the rules, call the roll when you're ready.
Okay. On the motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-6.
Okay. Thank you.
0. 9-0. 9-0. There's not 14 of us or 15 of us. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Timmons. I'm sorry.
Okay. You okay, Mr. Garino?
I'm sorry?
You okay, right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. I move to approve the personnel recommendation dated Thursday, May 14, 2020.
I will second the motion.
Okay. Second by Mr. Garino. A roll call.
Is there any
Okay.
discussion? Miss Bishop, was your hand up? For
No, I was
discussion?
just dancing.
Okay.
Sorry, I was waving to Julia, who's behind me.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. If we could go ahead and have the roll then.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you. I recommend to approve Craig Hahnemann, Assistant Principal of Pennachuck Middle School for the 2021 school year at an annual salary of $95,800. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh my goodness. Lots of people seconded. Dottie lit up for me as the first person to say it.
Okay. Any discussions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
And what was the salary again?
The salary was $95,800.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands. So, Mr. Guarino, when you're ready for the roll.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Last but not least, I recommend to approve Meg Peterson, Assistant Principal of Dr. Chris Elementary School for the 2021 school year at an annual salary of $74,750.
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Oden. Any discussion? Seeing none. When you're ready, Mr. Guarino.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
And that's all our HR has.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Timmons, and welcome to our assistant principals. All right. Yay. Liaison reports. I don't see any hands for liaison reports. The next item is unfinished business. I don't have anything from unfinished business that's ready to go this evening. I don't see any hands or anybody else wants to offer up something. So on to new business. The first item is the Nashua Data Governance Plan, which is what Mr. Rodriguez and his team presented to us earlier this evening. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the Nashua Data Governance Plan.
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Bishop, seconded by Ms. Timmons. Is there any discussion on this? Great. Mr. Guarino, when you're ready on the
No, I
motion.
have my hand up.
Oh,
Mrs.
I'm so
Raymond, I-
sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson. I don't see your video anymore. Go right ahead.
There we go. There we go. Where this is new business, and we just had the presentation tonight at the full board. Why didn't we have this in a committee and then come to the full board the way it should be?
We don't have a technology committee, so this would go directly to us. I don't know where else it would fall. Dr. Mo.
Just a point of clarification, there isn't a board. We do have a technology committee. It's just not a subcommittee of the board.
It's not a board committee.
Right. So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a unicorn. It's very unique. It's not typically something that it would go into policy or curriculum or evaluation. So,
I mean, it should have, but it should have found a committee to go into, talk about it, come back, and then vote on it that way. That's the way it's supposed to be. These things are supposed to fall into a committee. Thank you.
Ordinarily it would. I can't think of one of our standing committees that fit this particular situation. But Ms. Johnson, are you suggesting you need more time to discuss it?
No, I just think that, we should be following our protocol. Things should be going into a committee versus at the full board. I mean, I listened to the presentation, I reviewed it, but still, that's the way it's supposed to be. And we shouldn't be taking everything, things like this up at the full board. It's supposed to be committee, then come back to the full board.
Okay,
I just
thank you,
want to
Ms.
make sure we stay within protocol.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. We do have a motion on the floor to approve the Nashua Data Governance Plan. One last call for hands. Seeing none, and I can see almost everybody now. Mr. Guarino, if you could call the roll.
Okay, on the motion to approve the governance plan, the data governance plan, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
No.
Ms. Johnson, I can't. You muted. Did you say no?
I said no.
Ms. Johnson said no.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Yep. Ms. Ziem?
Yes.
Ms. Ziem?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Bishop? Okay. Ms. Bishop?
We got you.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Giglio?
Yes.
Ms. Giglio? Okay. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm having technical difficulties. There seems to be a delay. Ms.
Yeah.
Oden?
Yeah.
Mr. Guarino, you keep freezing.
Yes.
Perhaps if you turned off your video
I
for a
keep what?
moment. Freezing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
I believe I have 8 yeses and 1 no, so the motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guarino. That seemed to
You're
solve the
welcome.
problem, but please try to turn the video on again after a couple minutes, I guess. Okay, so the next item for new business, and thank you so much, Ms. Jingers, for waiting so long into our meeting for this. It's to discuss academic eligibility for athletics for this fall. Ms. Jingers, did you want to present your proposal?
Yes, if I could just speak to it briefly. So hi, everyone. Thank you
I'll
so
just
much
go ahead
for
and-
allowing me to speak to this topic tonight without waiting for the June policy meeting, because the decision is time sensitive. It's important for us to be able to communicate with students and parents any changes to the academic eligibility for the fall season as soon as possible, so that students are able to do what's necessary to remain eligible in the final few weeks of school. Although Stephen needed to leave, I appreciate him mentioning this potential change and supporting the exception for the fall. I know that both he and Josh, if Josh is still here, there he is, both he and Josh are some of our fall student athletes, so it will indirectly affect them. I know the status of school, as we've mentioned a few times during the meeting, and sports and activities for the fall is still up in the air and unknown to many of us. So, but I wanted to be very proactive with the information so that we can communicate it to families in the event that everything would return to normal. So we'll start with the middle schools because that one's easy. There are no changes necessary to the athletic eligibility policy JJJA, because the way the policy is written, it states that all middle school students are academically eligible for fall athletics every fall. So spring grades have no impact on their ability to participate in sports. And that information is at the bottom of page 2 in the policy. High school is a little bit more complicated. So for those of you who are not real familiar with our eligibility process, in a nutshell, we're more strict than the state policy. Students have to be enrolled in at least 3 classes. They can have no more than 1 non-passing grade. A non-passing grade is defined as either an F, a fail, an NC for no credit, or an INC for incomplete. And this is on the last page of the policy under, I think there's a section defining non-passing grades. The final piece of the current policy is that students also have to maintain an overall C- average for all of their classes. So a student who has the 1 F but has 3 C- would not be eligible because they wouldn't have met that criteria. With the change this spring to remote learning and allowing students to choose either the pass-fail audit system or the traditional grade system, the C- average is not going to be able to be calculated. A pass isn't a C-. So if we can't calculate that for some students, we really shouldn't be calculating it for any of our students, because we need to have one consistent system to determine our eligibility. What I'm proposing is that we approve suspending the high school section of policy JJJA for the start of the fall season only. So this would only affect the beginning of the season. In its place for initial fall eligibility, I would suggest that we use the criteria set forth by the NHIAA, which is that a student must pass 2 classes in a 4x4 block, period. This would be lowering our standards a little bit for the fall, but given the 2 different grading systems and all of the struggles that we know our students are experiencing with remote learning, is what we really think is best for the students at this time. So what this would look like for the start of the fall season, a student still has to have 3 classes, and they just have to pass 2 of, whether they have 3 classes or they have 4 classes, they have to pass 2 of them. So whether it's a pass with distinction, or any traditional grade C- or above, that would count as passing. Non-passing grades would remain the same. So if a student gets an F, a fail, an incomplete, or an NC, those would count as failing grades. Just like every other June set of grades in summer school, students with those grades can make those up and are encouraged to make those up over the summer. And if they do, as long as they get that grade prior to the season starting, we take the new summer school grade into account and not what they received at the end of June. In this system, an audit would not count towards eligibility at all. It's not a passing grade, it's not a failing grade. We would only use that grade in terms of an indication that a student had taken a class. So that would count towards their 3 classes. At the end of the first quarter next school year, assuming we're back to traditional learning, we would expect that policy JJJA would be used to determine the eligibility for the end of the fall season and the start of the next season. So prior to bringing this forward to you, just so you know, I did meet with both Principal Burns and Principal Richard about the proposal, and they are both in support of us making this exception for the start of fall. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gingras. I'm sorry, I turned myself off for a second to try and improve my connection. So as I understand it, you're really asking for 3 motions here. The first motion would be to suspend the rules to allow us to vote on the matter of athletic eligibility for fall 2020, because typically we would need for stuff to go through the policy committee before coming to the full board. 2, a motion to suspend the high school requirement for a C. Yep. The second one would be a motion to suspend the high school requirement for a C- average as per policy JJJA for the start of fall 2020 only. And then the third motion will be a motion to enact the NHIAA academic eligibility, which is a minimum of 2 passing grades and have taken 3 classes in quarter 4 for the beginning of fall 2020 only as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I still
Yes,
lagging?
that summarizes it. I think we all are.
I
kind
second
of.
Heather's motion.
Okay, well, it's 3 motions. 3 motions. So we have to look at each of them individually. So the first motion is to suspend the rules. Okay, thank you, Ms. Deem. So is there discussion on the first one regarding suspending the rules to allow us to vote this evening? I don't see any hands. Mr. Guarino, can you call the roll on the motion
My
to
hand is
suspend the
here.
rules? I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson. Okay, and then Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Again, why couldn't we have a policy meeting to discuss this in the policy committee? This is a policy change. I mean, we didn't have a meeting. We've had so many other meetings at this point. This should have gone to policy versus to the full board. We're impeding the process here, and we shouldn't be doing this, whether we're remote or we were in a high school. This should have gone to the policy committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Brown?
Yeah, so thank you for, yep, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? All right.
Yeah, apparently everyone's having some lagging issues, so apologies.
Thank you. All right, so my question is actually similar to Mr. Johnson's. Is this time sensitive since we're talking about fall sports? And why is there a reason why we can't wait, put it through policy, get it vetted out?
May I answer that question?
Yes, Ms. Gingras.
I was informed that I was told that the next policy meeting wasn't until June 7th. So waiting until that point would be almost too late for the communication to go to students and parents so that the students could correct any problems that they would potentially be having now. So that was the only reason. And part of that is I didn't think about it and act on it fast enough prior to the previous policy meeting. So I apologize for that.
And then when do summer sessions for like football and other fall sports start, assuming they're allowed to start?
Yeah, so, and again, all of this is under the assumption that our lives return to normal come some point in the future. So things that happen over the summer in the months of the end of June and July, those are off-season workouts and things like that. We don't check eligibility or anything like that for those things. But our actual season, we start with preseason night, August 11th would be our night, and football starts on August 14th, and then all other fall sports start on August 17th. So although they're entitled fall sports, they do start several weeks before school does. And again, the communication piece to our community is the most important part.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Fingers. Ms. Brown?
So I think what I'm hearing here is that if we lower the standard now for what's required for the classes, we're kind of asking kids we're informing parents so that they can make sure that they're just scraping by. And I don't necessarily think that's what we want to promote in the district. I think that while I do think that it's good if we suspend our, we modify so that we can use our pass-fail grades so that kids are still eligible for the fall. I don't think we should maybe I just misunderstood the way this would set up. Now they only have to actually pass one class to be eligible?
Currently, they would have to pass 3 classes. Under what I'm proposing, if we think about it the other way, currently they're only allowed to have 1 F, where under the proposal, which is the state policy, they can have up to 2, which is lowering the standards. And I understand by no means am I suggesting that students do the bare minimum to just scrape by. But I wanted to be sure that we're able to communicate to our families of those students that did choose to remain with the pass-fail system, that it's not going to penalize them for the fall. So that's kind of the piece. The other piece is the audit. I'm concerned that students may earn 3 or 4 audits and then would not be academically eligible. So it would be important for those student athletes to have that conversation and communication with their teachers prior to those final grades being posted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying, because I kind of was reluctant to move on this tonight. Since I agree with Ms. Johnson, this would be normally something that goes to a committee first. It makes sense.
Yep.
But we do want to communicate to those kids on that. If I may, when we make these, if we choose to suspend the rules to not send this to committee, I would like to modify these 2 motions, because I think those are 2 separate things, whether we accept the pass-fail grades for eligibility and whether we lower the standard to the state standard to allow students to be eligible with only 2 passing courses. So that would be my 2 cents worth.
Okay, so yes, those are 2, but let's take the vote on whether even to get to that next step. So, Mr. Guarino?
Yes.
On the motion,
You want me to read the roll
rules,
on the motion to suspend the rules? Okay. Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
No.
Okay. Ms. Ziem?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop? Okay. Ms. Gilio?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons? Ms. Timmons, you're still on mute. Maybe she can't hear me.
No, my battery is dying, so yes.
Okay. Motion carries 8-1.
Thank you. So the second motion, I'm just going to reread it. The motion is to suspend the high school requirement for a C- average as per policy JJJA for the start of the fall 2020 season only. And then the
I would like
motion
to
after that
second it.
would be, okay? The motion
Are-
after
are
that
you
would be
making
to
them?
enact the next thing. Ms. Seem already said she wanted to second all three.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Ms. Raymond?
Of course.
Okay, Ms. Gingras, if they start the fall season, is there a grading period during the fall season where they might not be able to finish the sport if they don't bring their grades up? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so every fall,
I don't know what happened. Ms. Gingras, did we lose you?
she said thank you, so I thought she was
Anyone?
satisfied with the answer. I apologize. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Is anybody there?
Yes, I think it glitched.
I'm fine.
Okay. I can expand on that if you want me to. Let me try turning off my video.
I'm fine. This is Dottie. I'm
All right, I
fine.
turned off my video.
No,
Is
I
that
think
better?
the problem is me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the problem was me and I missed your answer, but if Ms. Oden is fine, then I'm fine.
There is some connectivity problems.
Is there anybody else?
Going on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Miss Gingras. I think I didn't hear your answer to Miss Oden. Is there a fall sport season is there a grading period during the fall sports season?
Yes, there is the end of the first quarter. Those report cards come out usually the end of October, beginning of November. So depending if our teams continue far into the playoffs, then we reevaluate eligibility based on those first quarter grades. And that affects playoffs. That also affects the continuation of the football season into playoffs through the Thanksgiving game, as well as usually our cheer state competition. So that happens every year at the end of first quarter. We reevaluate all student athletes' grades again. Mrs. Raymond, may I add one other thing?
Yes.
You mentioned that this motion was to suspend only the C- rule of the policy. The proposal also speaks possibly suspending all of the JJA policy for high school because it also involves the number of passing grades.
Oh, I think I put that in the third motion. So what we're looking for is a motion to suspend all of JJJA for the high school?
Yes, for the start, just for the start of the season.
The start of the fall season. So I'd like to amend my motion, like just withdraw my motion and then restate it in a way that makes sense. Ms. Eam, is that all right with you?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to make a new motion, and the motion is to suspend the policy JJJA regarding the high school requirements for the start of the fall 2020 athletic season. Yes?
That would work for what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'll second that if Mrs. Eam can't.
That's fine.
Okay.
Can you just repeat it again, the motion?
Sure. The motion is to suspend the part of policy JJJA regarding the high school requirements for eligibility for the start of the fall 2020 athletic season. Did I lose everybody?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm here.
I'm still here.
Okay,
I
so
think
we
the-
still have a, what?
I
Oh, this
think
is a
there's some.
mess.
I think there's some problems with the internet connectivity. It's like delaying people's reactions and responses. So I
Okay,
think people
so-
are just not using their videos.
Ms. Gingras, do you think that we could take this vote next week, or would that be too late?
I think the only concern is the later we take it, the less time we have for students to have those conversations with their teachers. Again, the thing I'm most concerned about is the use of the audit. I just don't want that to hurt students and them not eligible. But I mean, obviously it's your board, it's your motion, it's your decision. So I don't want to rush anyone.
right,
I'm just really concerned about getting the word out to our families as quickly as possible.
Okay, so given our connectivity issues, Ms. Quintanilla?
I just wanted to remind the board that next week you actually do not have a meeting because of the quantity of city meetings and budget meetings. So we are not meeting again as a board until Wednesday, May 27th.
Thank you, Ms. Quintanilla. Given the connectivity issues that we're having, I'd like to suggest that everyone turn their videos off because that seems to help with lowering our bandwidth. And then, oh, now I'm out.
No, you're there.
Oh, I'm there. Okay, great. So great. If we could go ahead and the roll on this motion, Mr. Guarino, and then I'll figure out a system for hands after.
Can I just speak to this for a second, Heather?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. I support this. I think getting kids involved in sports is healthy, and I think it gives them an incentive to bring their grades up. If they're playing a sport and they're being successful and they have teammates and support, I think they want to stay in that. And for students that have had a hard time with remote learning and the disconnect, I just think this is the right thing to do for our students. So that's why I support it. I think it could be a good motivator for students that have had a hard time with remote learning and their grades have slipped. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. Any other comments, please?
May
Say
I?
me next in the chat function.
No.
I heard you, Jessica, though, so you can go right ahead.
If someone wants to go before me, that's fine. So I actually agree with half of what Ms. Oden said. I think sports and extracurriculars are that social component is what keeps so many kids driving and pushing to school through school. And I am sympathetic to the struggles kids have right now with remote learning. I mean, we're experiencing it at this very moment during this meeting, how rough remote communication can be. But I don't think I'll be supporting this because I think that should be separated into two separate segments. I don't think that we should. I understand that we cannot expect the C- average to be calculated in, since they're not all being calculated as actual GPAs. But I think that kids should still try their best to push through and finish all their classes. And in that 2-week period where we're going to be taught, we've left in teachers to work on remediation and catching up. I think, you know what, those kids, those families need to reach out and do their best to get passing grades for the fall. Thank you.
I have something to say if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Brown and Ms. Timmons, please go ahead.
I totally agree with Ms. Oden. We have to consider more than just grades. A lot of these kids are on a lot of stress. This is the only way they can get that stress out and perhaps their grades would improve. But to put limitations on them, I don't agree with. So I will be supporting this motion.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Timmons. Anyone else? Okay, nobody's lighting up, and nobody's in the chat. So, Mr. Guarino, if you could please call the roll now.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
No.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
No.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
I have 7 yeses and 2 nos. Motion carries 7-2.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guarino. So I have one more motion, and that is I move to enact the NHIAA academic eligibility, which is a minimum of 2 passing grades, and have taken 3 classes in Q4 of the spring 2020 for the start of the fall 2020 athletic season only.
I'll second that.
Now, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What do the grades have to be on this again?
It's 2 passing grades, and you must have taken at least 3 classes.
2 passing grades of C minus, or what?
Or pass if you elected pass fail.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Guarino, if you could please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Ziem,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Gilio,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
No.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons.
Yes.
I have 1 no and 8 yeses. The motion carries 8-1.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Gingras, was there anything else that you needed from us this evening?
No, that was everything. Thank you very much. And I'll get off if that's okay. And maybe that'll help your connection issues.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Thank you. So it turns out that if no one has their video on except me, that I get to be the face that everyone sees on their television. So this is now the Miss Raymond show. Sorry, everyone out there in television land. The next item on.
Good face.
Thanks. So the next item, and actually almost the last item on our agenda this evening, is the Remote Learning Plan Committee. Dr. Mosley had sent out an email to the board earlier this week, and he and I have discussed the idea of establishing a committee of the board in conjunction with administration and staff to take a look at how remote learning has worked for the district, what some of the challenges are, and make a series of plans for various options for the fall. I shared my thoughts with a couple of board members about this, and I'm just going to keep talking since the camera's on me anyways. And my proposal is that we create an ad hoc committee of the board, and we task the committee with doing 3 things. The first thing would be to research and then create a plan for reopening the schools safely in the fall, if we're allowed to do so. The second task would be that we do research and create plans for starting school with remote learning if we have to do that. And the third task I would ask it to do would be to explore options and create a plan if we have to do as we did this spring and start in the buildings and then transition to remote learning mid-semester. Hopefully we can use this as an opportunity to learn and grow. Anyone else want to speak?
Are you suggesting that the full board would participate?
My suggestion is that we would have perhaps 2 board members participate, at least one administrator. IT would probably have to be there, and then representatives from the 3 levels of the schools. And then I would suggest, but I'm open, that the committee, once it's formed, would then create 3 task forces, one to look at each task. So one task force to look at reopening safely, and that would include like a school nurse. And then a second task force would look at starting school remotely, and that would obviously have to have a representative from IT. And then a third task force would look at if we do midstream. And I would suggest that on the task forces that you would have at least an administrator or principal, and at least a special education and an ELL person, in addition to any staff that wanted to be involved in that. So it's kind of a big undertaking.
Hey, Heather, I have a quick question for you.
Okay, and then Ms. Brown.
So with the, I like this idea. I think it's great. Tremendous. Fabulous. No, just kidding. If we have people coming in for these committee meetings that typically work during the day, would we be shifting the meeting times to accommodate their normal workday schedule? I would hate to have a school nurse work all day and then sit in a remote meeting for a committee for another 3 hours.
Right. My suggestion would be to do similar to what we do with our committees right now. And that is to have task forces report to the committee, and then the committee report to the board. So similar to curriculum, you have teachers and administrators report to the curriculum committee, and then the curriculum committee reports to the board. Does that make sense?
And then those committees can create times that work best for everybody.
Well, I would call them task forces so that we are clear that a committee of the board has to meet regularly and publicly, whereas a task force can do breakout groups or whatever they feel is appropriate, and it doesn't have to be televised. But their presentation to the remote learning committee would have to be televised, and then the remote learning committee's presentation to the full board would have to be televised.
Okay. I like it.
I don't know how to make a motion for it. Go ahead, Ms. Brown, and then I hear Dr. Mosley, and then I hear Josh Gow.
Thank you. So I like where you're going with this. I think it needs a little tweaking. I think rather than have 3 separate committees or separate task force working to make these huge detailed plans separately, I think that might be one task force where another task force is working specifically on remote learning curriculum items. And that might be at high school, middle school, elementary, based on the kind of calendar timeline that's put out by the state. And maybe that's actually is one other thing, a school, not only a safety opening committee task force, but a calendaring task force that's working on whether we need to modify that calendar space. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe we need to zero in before we make this formal on what the job of each task force is a little bit more specifically, so they're not working against each other and doing a lot of work that might not ever get used, and so that they can complement each other. I think the other 2 clear things that I would recommend moving forward with this would be making sure everyone has very clear deadlines and for which their tasks are supposed to be reporting to their committee, their board committee. And I think make sure that those deadlines are also not working against this, whatever this put out by the state. If the state says, you know, we have to work within their recommendations as well. So, but thank you. I think I like where we're going with this. I don't know for sure if this specific setup is what we want to move on tonight, but I think we should definitely fix this. I love the proposal. I think we're going somewhere.
Thank you. Dr. Mosley, you wanted to say something, and also Mr. Gao.
I would say that that when we did the strategic plan, one of the things we did is that we formed a kind of an eclectic group of people together to start hammer out the things that Ms. Brown mentioned, but also you too, Miss Raymond. So I would, you know, I mean, this is a lot. I understand that you're in the summertime too. And so there's teachers that take their time too, as well as administrators too. And to Ms. Brown's point, there is a task force working at the state level too. My recommendation would be to, you know, certainly develop what type of membership you want. So it's a different cross section of administrators. When we mention administrators, we just have to be remote learning affects administrators differently at the high school, middle school, and elementary school, special ed, ELL. And making sure that we have those groups represented. And finally, I think having parents part of that too, and particularly parents at the different levels, because everyone had a different experience. So I'm putting that out there just to say that that's something to consider. But once the group is formed, then these questions can be teased out and then recommended back to the board if that's what sounds amenable to people.
Okay, thank you. My concern is making sure that we get started before school ends, at least with creating, if we're going to make a remote learning committee, that we at least create the committee, assign a couple of board members and an administrator to then look at inviting others, you know, and fleshing it out. Not that we have to go with exactly my idea, because I'm not an educator, so, or, you know, or exactly somebody else's idea, but to have the committee itself figure that stuff out. Mr. Gao, and then maybe Ms. Giglio.
So I remember someone mentioning that one of the purposes of the committee is to kind of evaluate some of the things that we can improve in terms of remote learning, just in case we have to continue remote learning in the fall. I'm wondering if there's any way we can get students involved in this committee or in the task forces, perhaps, because I think that the students experience things perhaps really differently than the teachers do. And I think their opinions would be really valuable on this.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Ms. Giglio?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the committee should be formed and iron out a lot of the details once the committee is formed and is meeting. But I would hope that, because a lot of what we need to do is whether you're a student, a teacher, or a parent, we should all have the ability to reflect on how this went, what went well, what we learned about best practices, what was just so challenging that it was extremely difficult. And I would hope that maybe during the last 2 weeks of school, where we're going to be on a different sort of calendar per se, that maybe that would provide some opportunity for some of our staff and students and parents even to start to put together their reflections on how this went and what they would foresee as a better practice should we ever have to go to remote learning again. Just my thought.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Giglio. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the general idea of creating an ad hoc committee of this kind?
Ms. Raymond?
Yes, Ms. Oden.
I think it's absolutely necessary. I think everything out there, you can always make improvements. This was new. The teachers had no time to get together to develop some coordination here and to share. So I think this is something that has to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oden. Ms. Kinsanella?
I think you have to be careful if you do an ad hoc. If that's what you choose to do, that's fine. But it makes it legal. It makes it a
Oh.
public meeting. And it will entail minutes and postings and quorums. And that's hard to do in the summer.
Mm.
So,
well, I certainly think that I do think that that some of the committee's discussions ought to be public, although perhaps we don't have our policy regarding creating temporary committees doesn't say they have to be ad hoc or not ad hoc. So we don't have to use that particular phrase. But I believe that I believe that some of the work needs to be done in public. So, I remember when we made the strategic plan committee, it was a committee and then they had task force underneath it. And I don't believe we called that one an ad hoc committee, did we?
No, but one of the things we did is that we were able to meet because it wasn't an ad hoc from the steering committee. We had two committees. We had steering committee, then we had the leadership committee. And it wasn't necessary. I don't think it was an ad hoc from the BOE.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
I think the key here is defining it as either a task force or a work group, which will then report to the board, the committee, either a committee under the board or directly to the board. And that's when the discussion will happen in public meetings. Because if we call it a task force, that means all the people at that meeting can contribute on an equal level. Whereas if we call it a committee, then only the board members can actually have any real power. So I think which is how we should, if we're going to pass something or if we're going to move something through the district, we need to make sure we follow that procedure. So the way I would recommend we set this up would be task force reports to whatever committee we think it falls under, whether it's budget, policy, curriculum, and valuation. Those committees then report to the board as they usually do if we need to make any kind of a public movement and with our presentation.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Mosley.
Again, just drawing on what we did for the strategic plan, maybe creating kind of like a matrix or on how this looks like and the membership and what the responsibilities are for the task force and the committees would be helpful to the public, but also to the people who are signing up for this, because they want to know exactly what the commitment's going to be. If you're going to start this during the school year, understanding that we just told the teachers that we wanted it to be reasonable and manageable, and are we asking them to do more? I'm just not clear about the expectations for the teachers and for the administrators that are going to be on the committee or task force.
I think that's a reasonable question. And that's something I think for the board to answer. But for myself, I would say I think it's critically important that we give any staff member who wants it the opportunity to provide feedback or suggestions regarding remote learning, what successes they had, what supports would be helpful in the future before they leave for the summer. I don't want people leaving for the summer without having an opportunity to share their thoughts on how things went, so that hopefully we can, so we have that data for this group to use over the summer when working on plans.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I get what you're saying. What we did for the strategic plan is that we went out and we did those SWOT analysis, and then we did the survey. So I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
I'm not sure that given our current situation, we can't just go to an elementary school and have everybody gather in a room. There would have to be some other method.
But we can try to get a survey out or something like that to get some feedback, like as you and I discussed. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So at the minimum, I would want a survey. So, but I'm
Do we
thinking,
need a motion for that?
I think we need a motion to establish whatever we're going to call it, whether we call it a steering committee or we call it a task force, for the purposes of developing plans for future remote learning and safely returning to school in the fall. Yeah.
I
No?
make a, I
Wait,
make
Hold on. Hold on.
1 second. Miss Brown had her hand up.
What if, since we're not exactly defined on what we want this task force to accomplish, what if we, and this would be within our voting power, we create a temporary board committee that eventually the task force will report to, that can actually can target this task force. If we want to move on this tonight, maybe we should make sure that we're honing in on what our purpose is. We want to make sure, because right now we could actually get board members to be assigned to it throughout the course of this week. You could assign board members to that committee, which could then work together to create the task force, which I do agree that we need before the end of the school year. So it's crunch time. We have a lot of work to do in a short period of time, but we want to make sure that whatever we're doing to get this off the ground is not, we're not just creating a committee to create a committee. You know what I mean? We're like, actually, it has a focus, and we need to focus our efforts.
So I would say in the motion what the purpose is, and the purpose would be to create a plan for future remote learning and to create a plan for returning to school in the fall safely.
So who's going to be the chair of this? Are you saying that when we did the strategic plan, we had the administrator and a board member, but now you're saying that just the board would just be doing this? And how does that work? Like, how would that work in terms of like the two board members would be chairing the committee and the task force?
No, I don't think that's what Ms. Brown is saying. I think she's saying that
I don't.
that it would be a temporary committee of the board similar to our other standing committees.
Jen, can I say something?
Yes, and then Ms. Giglio.
Well, mine's pretty quick. I just think that because school will end June 16th, the board will be getting back together all summer, I'm pretty sure. But I don't think the teachers will be as available. And so getting the survey out now, while time is of the essence. I mean, we're already at the end, we're towards the end of May right now. So I think getting the survey out needs to be part of this so that we will have it answered, so that it will the answers, I think, will give us some direction as to where we're actually going to go. But that's just my thought. Thank you.
Can I add something? I don't know where the list is.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 second, Ms. Bishop. Ms. Giglio had her hand up first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel this should be a combined effort. I don't actually see it as a group that's going to report to the board. I don't see the board as being the group that is overseeing all this by themselves. I mean, where is our school administration? It needs to be a collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
I really think so, for it to be successful. So that's just my opinion.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bishop?
Hi. So I was thinking the survey piece is, I think in the moment, we may get completely different answers than when people have had a break for a week or two and they've been able to decompress. I don't think getting a survey out before the end of school is necessarily going to make or break what happens in the fall. And I also think it's adding to an already full plate. So if we don't have, if people want to share their opinions, I saw that there was something that went out earlier today, or the other day. If people want to share their opinions, that's great. I don't think that we should make anything mandatory until everybody's had a time to just decompress and relax for a minute and, reflect on. You can't reflect when you're in the moment. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. I hear what you're saying on that. On the other hand, If we allow people a chance to, I mean, first of all, nothing is mandatory. No one has to complete the survey, period. It's a chance for staff who want to provide feedback. Second, it's already the end of May. We start at the end of August. We have 3 months, almost exactly 3 months in a week until school starts again. So I'm not overstating it to say that time is critical. Now we can use certainly the recommendations of other agencies. We can use the recommendations of the state, absolutely. But we need people to look at those things. So if no one, I mean, I guess I'm putting it out there. If anyone wants to make a motion, I think now would be the time.
I would make the motion. I just want to clarify, are we calling it I'm sure we've gone over this 100 times. Are we calling it a committee or a task force?
Given our experience with the strategic plan, personally, I would call it a temporary committee. And then under the committee would be the task forces, but I don't have strong feelings.
We didn't do it that way, Heather. Sorry,
Oh.
this is. Sorry.
Good. Tell me the right way.
All right. This is what we did. Like, we created a kind of like a membership of a steering committee that represented different subsections of the demographics within the district. And then the board appointed a representative along with an administrator to chair those task the task force. And then those task force to chair the steering committees. And then Sue Porter and I basically we kind of, and then there was a subcommittee of that, which consisted of about 2 coaches and an administrator and a board member. So the membership isn't necessarily important, but it's important that you have, because the administrators know the district, the board knows the board, and so it's nice to have that balance of board and administrators working in tandem. It just made it a lot easier, but it also felt collaborative too. We also worked very, very closely with the union too, and they had a voice in that too. For example, Mr. Marcoux was part of the steering committee. So we want to make sure that there's diversity within our community. And we were strategic in making sure that we specifically went out and got ELL parents to be part of this too. So I think, the strategic plan took us about 2 to 3 weeks just to get the committee membership together before we were able to present it to the board.
Right. And I would just say that we don't have the luxury of a year to work on this like we did with that steering committee. So that's where I'm at. Ms. Giglio? Oh, no. Dr. McKinney?
I was just thinking, I'm offering a suggestion. I serve on a lot of committees. I'm wondering if it's possible to leverage the current structure of the board and ask for each committee to report no later than their August meetings, because you already have groups that can do some of this work for you, and you'll have the state recommendations the end of June. So what are the implications for human resources, finance and operations, curriculum, bring in technology, plan operations, and have it in some working meetings and groups in July and August. There is a certain level of fatigue from staff that are not really interested in working in June. And engaging smaller groups in July and August is certainly more financially feasible, because we are going to have a considerable amount of cost for cleaning supplies, masks, gloves, all of those things coming out of that as well. So, and not to mention technology and Wi-Fi access. So just propose it, thought of it. I don't know if it helps or not, but there's a lot happening the last 3 weeks of June in terms of giving every report cards, closing down school. giving folks a break and then having some kind of subcommittee meetings, and then kind of moving forward on the recommendations that come down from the state, because they really are guided to a informed decision making and not be the end all be all, because everyone's going to have to adopt, whether you're a big city or a small school up in the North Country. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney. I think that is a wise suggestion, and I'm certainly not opposed to it. My only concern is time. I don't want to overburden anyone at all, but I also don't want to be caught in August without a concrete structure for a number of eventualities. I think last time we had a week to figure it out, and I feel like the whole district just kind of had to like rewrite all of the curriculum in 5 days. And I don't want our staff to do that again ever. So that's like really the goal here, is to make sure that everybody has the support that they need, whether we open in the fall or whether we, have to start out in remote learning, or if we have some sort of combination thereof. So does anyone have a motion?
I have one more question, Heather, sorry.
Yeah.
Kind of going off of that, and kind of using what we already have established, is what if we left it up as committee chairs within our own committees to really tailor our meetings for the summer on what remote learning looks like, but the task force that we have meets whenever to guide what needs to happen in each of those committees.
I don't know. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
You're on mute.
You're muted again.
Go ahead and let Dr. McKinney speak first.
I just think you have a member of the board in each committee, and you have a administrative liaison. So the two of them can work together and determine the action items, invite folks in, have conversations. There's certainly going to be policy implications from some of this. So I understand the question around the task force. I just wonder, we don't really know a lot yet. And I know people want to get going, but I think it's kind of this weird thing between waiting to get some answers, but also feeling the urgency to get things done. And I think a lot is going to transpire over the next 2 months. And I would just allow others to do some of that work for us and then tailor it to our district. So thanks. Sorry, Ms. Brown.
No, actually, thank you very much. That's kind of, originally I was thinking, yeah, let's get this moving, but I want to make sure it's defined in scope. But I think I understand what you're recommending for this, is not putting the cart before the horse. So I'm wondering if maybe what we do is, from a board perspective, we make sure that each time we meet, we have targeted questions to drive to our committees so we can help, that are already in place, whether it's policy, curriculum, budget, whatever, in regards to the reopening of schools. And then, so kind of exactly along what Dr. McKinney is suggesting. And so don't necessarily make a special committee for this, but we use what we've already got in place and use it more specifically. And then maybe as a sidebar, we start to develop a task force that's just ready to go when we need it. So maybe we do start working on who the members of this group, the volunteers in the community, the parents, the teachers, the administrators. So when we do get more information from the state, we can put that action into place, and we have people to bounce those ideas off of a little bit more readily than during a Board of Education meeting. Does that sound a little bit maybe driving the direction we want to go?
Geez, I really do feel like it's the Heather show. No one else is answering those questions.
Well, I'm not sure who she was asking.
Miss Gilio?
Well, I agree with what Ms. Brown just said, basically. It's it would have been nice, I think, looking back, if we could have tackled this at the beginning of the meeting, because we're heading into our 4th hour.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a morning person, so I'm sundowning at this point. Anyway.
I think that, again, getting back to the membership piece, in our current structure, we certainly have policy, curriculum evaluation, we're bringing technology. I think we have to just think about how do we bring those teachers and some of those individuals who are not traditionally connected to those subgroups into that conversation. But I think it could be a good start.
So how about this? If I can go now.
Go ahead. And then, well, unless Miss Gilio, you weren't done?
No, I was done.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Bishop.
So the motion that I'm kind of kicking around right now is to direct standing committees to report on reopening and remote learning plans by the end of July, to bring back to full board meetings so that we can more direct committee invites and follow up.
Second.
And that's, well, it's
Go
not
ahead.
a motion yet, because I want to make sure that I don't want to add stuff on that doesn't need to get done, but I do think that we need to have a dedicated focus to what remote learning looks like. And I think we have an opportunity right now to really address pieces that we only had a week to address before. We can get ahead of the game. But we do already have these standing committees that would have to funnel back through them anyway.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Ms. Ziem.
Is Dr. Can't think of his name.
Mosley?
Dr. What's his face? No.
McKinney.
Thank you. Sorry, Dr. McKinney. I'm having sundowner too, big time. I
can do mental status exams, guys.
I'm just not real sure what the recommendation is. Are you saying that you would let it lie for a while and attack it next meeting? Or what are you saying exactly? Because I'm not sure what you're recommending, and I'm not even sure what Dr. Mosley is recommending. And to be honest with you, I think that a lot of the direction should come from the two of you, because you are the educators, and this is about education, the heart of education.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Ms. Ziem.
Well, I think we're all tired, and we're trying to figure this out like everybody else. And maybe at this point it may be wise to table and come back to this. But I think what I'm suggesting is, they have a very good professional organization moderating the state meetings. There's that group working, and then there's a opening schools plan from the National AFT. So you have some guidance out there. It's about tailoring it to the district. So if you were to take time and think about either key stakeholders that you want on a work group to do this, or dedicate your July and August meetings to reviewing those and having them working meetings to bring forth recommendations, or have administrators bring them to present to the liaison from the board and the chairperson, you can make those things actionable.
So what are you saying about the survey? Are you saying you think we should do the survey immediately or later?
to be honest, to the board, there is a level of survey fatigue in the district. So I think if you were to
Thank you. That's all you need to say. I'm with you.
So I guess my question, am I on mute? I guess my
No.
question would be, I'm happy to table this for 2 weeks, given that I think administration knows that the board is thinking about it, and then I see it percolating in Dr. McKinney's brain. But I am really like, I'm going to be like a dog with a bone on this idea of making sure that staff get an opportunity to provide feedback before they go home from the summer. I don't want staff to have to be thinking about and crafting responses at the end of June after they're on break.
Hey, Heather.
Yeah.
How about in the next 2 weeks? How about we table this right now? And in the next 2 weeks, the teachers who are the most passionate about this, who would be most likely to be involved in this anyway, shoot us off some emails about what they would be interested, like vet it out, who would be on these committees, and take the 2 weeks to let everybody think about the different paths we need to go down. So the committees, so as chairs, we can think about what we need to be addressing in our own committees, and then, just vet out who would be a good fit to be invited to these meetings, and if we need to come up with extra meetings. But just,
I guess I would just say that I don't think that emailing the board as a whole is the best avenue for giving that feedback. I want staff to be able to give the feedback to their principals or the administrators or someone who knows what to do with it, which I think we've clearly demonstrated that we're motivated to do the right thing. We just don't know how to get there because we're not an educator. So go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
And I think you're 100% right. I think it needs to go to the building principals, and then they can filter it out to Dr. Mosley, and it can come to us if need be, on what needs to be done in a committee. Because I think you can either make the committees and you can make it a crazy committee, or you can just go in and decide what is our game plan, and what are we going to do? Because we only have a short window here. And I'll tell you something. I want to hear from the teachers. I want to hear what the strengths were with the remote learning and what were the downfalls of it. But I would also like to get some feedback from the parents, because we need to include them into this for the simple reason is they were the ones who were home. And I got a call today from a special ed mother that were having pitfalls with special ed with 2 autistic children. So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this, and that's what we've got to find out. What were the high points of it? What were the low points of this? And how can, if by some chance, I hope that we don't go back into this again. And if we do, how can we improve this? And we have to take a look at special ed as a big piece of this, because those are the kids, and I don't mean those as a negative thing. Those are the kids that are going to have the hardest time, especially some of your autistic kids that can't adapt to this. So we need to work with special ed to figure out how can we improve that if this happens again. And it doesn't have to be a hard committee. It can be something that we're not dragging out and we're making it into anything big. So I think tonight is a great point to probably end this, pick it up in 2 weeks when our brain is fresh, and we get a couple of ideas from administration and what they would like to see the board tackle here. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't believe that we need a motion just to put it on the next agenda under unfinished business, unless anyone opposes me doing that. I don't see or hear anyone. Okay, so I suggest that we move to board member comments, unless anyone else has any new business for tonight. Oh, good, I hear none. So if you do have new business for the next meeting, email me and I will talk to Dr. Mosley about it, and we'll put it on the next agenda. So I'm going to go around with my little Brady Bunch boxes. Ms. Brown, do you have a board member comment this evening?
Just thank you for everyone for working so hard, staying tuned in and checking in. This is a long one today, but I appreciate everybody's hard work throughout the district, the families and the kids. Thank you. Stay strong.
Thank you. Ms. Giglio?
I would like to thank parents, teachers, and students who took the time to send emails over the last couple of weeks, letting us know how difficult at times the remote learning was, or how well it was going, what they thought maybe could be done differently. Many said that they were falling into a nice routine. I mean, we got viewpoints from all over, and I just appreciated getting all that information. Because it opened up my mind more to understanding what everyone's experience was, and all those experiences are very different, and we need to respect them going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Giglio. Ms. Johnson?
Good for the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Bishop?
Well, to start off, no, I'm just kidding. I have nothing to add. It's really late.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Mr. Guarino?
Sure. Just real quick, because I know we've gone long, but I just want to thank all the teachers out there and the parents for hanging in there with this remote learning. It is hard. It's very hard on parents and on teachers. One teacher said to me, it's pretty hard to teach remotely to a 1-year-old because how many 1-year-olds know how to use how to use a computer? So they have to get the parents involved, especially at the younger ages. So I just want to thank them for hanging in there, and hopefully we'll be on the way to normal schooling, I hope, in the fall. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. Ms. Ziem?
Everybody have a great week.
Thank you, Ms. Ziem. Ms. Oden?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think whatever structure this takes, I think the teachers are the ones in the trenches, and they're the ones that we have to listen to. They have done this unbelievably well with very little preparation. And I think they're the ones that we need to listen to. It's nice to have administration there to be able to filter it up to us. But I hope we make a real effort to include our teachers. And in saying that, I'd like to know if the COVID funds could be used to pay stipends to the teachers.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Oden. I don't see Ms. Timmons anymore, so it looks like we've lost her. I just want to say thank you to everybody for hanging in this long. Those of you on the board and those of you out watching. So I had other things, but not tonight. Okay, so at this point, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Oden, seconded by Ms. Ziem. When you're ready, Mr. Guarino.
Okay. On the motion to adjourn, Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Ziem?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Giglio?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0. We are adjourned, 9:05 p.m.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.